G'day, so I've just upgraded my miter saw, so what I'm going to go ahead now and is make myself a miter saw bench. A couple of dudes I do want you to check out is Robin Lewis Makes. He's made a pretty cool miter saw bench, and also Sumo's project. They're two very different ones. So Sumo's has got some dust collection on it already, which is pretty cool. But check them both out. Mine's going to be probably a little bit different again, so watch along and hope you like it. So I've chucked the saw on top of this whiteboard here. I just want to raise the overall height so that when I make my side pieces here, I've actually got a decent depth to make some draws. So I'm going to use this existing baseline for the bottom of this shelf and the other top. So all I need to do is merely take a measurement . Okay, because that'll be the top piece. That distance there will then be my supports for that side wing that I'm going to make. Okay, so my miter saw sits on an old set of kitchen cupboards, so I have to build up the sides so I can set up this miter saw station. This is going to be very simple, so I'm ripping down my strips that I need to make those to raise the height of my bench. And I'm simply going to set it all up so I can glue and screw all these pieces together. It's going to be nice and quick to get me back in action so I can keep building. I've also just got myself some proper dust extraction. So I've got a 100mm pipe that I need to plumb into all my machines now. So now's the time to get these fittings in. I'll flip my bench upside down so I can cut out the hole for this port, and then I can go ahead and make the rest of the framework. So like I said, this is going to be very simple, just gluing and screwing. I'm not cutting any rebates, this is purely to get me back in action. The way I'm doing it here is how I did the first side. It wasn't the easiest or the quickest process. Later in the video I've come up with a better way to attach these support pieces a lot more efficiently. So the reason for this build is I've upgraded my miter saw, which you can see here, and I'm absolutely loving this machine already, how it gets right up against the wall. But what I am thinking about with this build is enclosing every possible place that dust can sit and hide. So all my benches will be nice and flush. I'll eventually get a dust shroud up and over that miter saw, but already with that suction just flowing without a shroud, it's already sucking a heap of the dust away beautifully. So another bonus is the space saving. You don't have all that wasted space behind the miter saw fence that you normally get when you've got a sliding miter saw with the long rails. So now I've just got some slimline cupboards. I'm raising them up because in front of that there's going to be some T-track where my stop block is going to run. So I need to be able to open and close those doors without hitting the top of the stop block. And again, I'm putting some trimming around the bottoms and the sides to prevent any dust just filling up underneath that cupboard. Okay, this is the second way of attaching those support rails, and far more efficient, and I wish I had done this on the first one. So I'm merely going to clamp it on the edge piece. It's already nice and square. I'll glue and screw. And then for the center pieces, I'll do the same thing, and I'll just check it's square with my new big yellow square, which is awesome. right side of the mitre saw going on now. I've already had to cut out a check for that steel beam that holds up the shed, but it's slotted in again, nice and flush up against the mitre saw, stop any dust falling down in between, which will then marry up with that shroud on the right hand side once I get to it. Alrighty, that's part one of my mitre saw upgrade. So I've got a new saw, and I've just quickly made my mitre saw bench. So I've gone with these raised sides, where I'm going to be able to have the drawers in the side. It's very compact, this saw, and my mitre station allows me to get to that 45 both directions, and it's obviously now nice and close to the wall, which was the 100% main reason I bought this. There are heaps of other saws that would get me in there, but I've now also got that nice radial arm. I can slide out, get the big cuts, and I do make big stuff, so that was probably pretty important. There's also a dust chute in the back there ready to go, so I've now got to plumb that up with my extractor, but I've got it to a workable stage, so now I can get back into building furniture. Let's do it. Hey, one other thing I do want to mention is you're probably wondering why I'm using all this nice melamine. Well, it's actually a recycled kitchen. So one of my mates got dusted up in the floods last year, and all this kitchen in my shed is actually his salvaged. So these are the last pieces. So I'm putting those to good use, and I'm very grateful because it's pretty good stuff. I'm now going to cut some rebate in to put in some T-track, so I can have a stop block just on the left-hand side at this stage. Working with pallet wood, one of the things I do is lots and lots of repeatable cuts. So having a stop block, and I'll eventually put my tape or sticky tape back on with the measurements, that'll speed up the process again. But I absolutely cannot live without this. It is such a time saver. Highly recommend getting some form of stop block with a measurement hanging off the side of your mitre saw. So the next small job is I actually want to remake this stop block. This one's a little bit old and it's actually broken a couple of times. I made it pretty poorly originally, and I've also got to lop the top off that threaded nut so I can open and shut the doors. But anyway, that's pretty much it. There's my little Homer Simpson. He's missing his legs. He needs an upgrade as well. Okay, this is how the mitre saw station finished up. So I've still got some drawers to make. I've got to make a dust shroud, but I've now plumbed up this dust chute here, and I'm pretty impressed with the extraction. I've just got that on temporarily for now, the other shop vac. This top's not yet fixed down, a couple of drawers to go in there also, and I'll end up doing some sort of shelving up there just to store some more garbage, etc. Anyway, I'm pretty happy. It's going to let me get back in action. Because I've got a bit of a deadline. I've got to get cracking on some longboards, specifically one that's going to be heading down to Melbourne for the art auction to raise money for the bushfire appeal in Australia. So stay tuned for that. Rightio, so just finally, one more quick shout out. Dust. I had a 2019 war on dust, and starting 2020 I'm after a good start. I've got dust extraction, I've got some pipes all plumbed in. I've got the mitre saw plumbed in. I'm going to get a shroud. I've got a few smacks on the bum from a few of my other videos where I'm not wearing the appropriate dust extraction, and I take that on the chin. But if you want to learn about some dust PPE and looking after your lungs, because they're important, without them you die. Anyway, go and check out James Fix It Fingers latest video. He goes right through all the different types of PP protection, specifically for dust and also chemicals. He knows his stuff. It gets a bit dry, and he acknowledges that, but it's pretty important stuff. Go and check it out, have a watch, and look after yourself. See you on the next one.